There is something almost embarrassing about it. The most powerful man in the world, ruler of the greatest empire in human history, commander of armies, arbiter of life and death for millions of people, woke up every morning and had to talk himself out of bed. Not metaphorically, literally. He wrote it down, he left the evidence. And 2,000 years later, that evidence is the most human thing about him. Before we go any further, a question. What is the first thought you have in the morning? Not the second one, not after the coffee. The first one. Before your feet hit the floor. For most people, it is some version of the same thing. Not yet. 5 more minutes. I don't want to. Today is going to be hard. We carry a quiet shame about this. We think it means something is wrong with us. That the people who seem to have it together, the ones building things, leading things, becoming something, wake up differently, with energy, with certainty, with a fire already burning. But they don't, and I can prove it. His name was Marcus Aurelius. He ruled Rome from 161 to 180 AAD. He is considered by historians to be one of the greatest leaders who ever lived, not because of his conquests, but because of the quality of his character under impossible pressure. He managed wars on multiple fronts simultaneously. He buried several of his own children. He governed through a plague that killed millions. He dealt with political betrayal, military crisis, and the relentless demands of an empire that depended entirely on his judgment. And every single morning, he struggled to get out of bed. We know this because he told us. Not in a speech, not in a letter to someone else. In his private journal, a document he wrote entirely for himself, with no intention that anyone else would ever read it. He called it simply, To Himself. We know it today as Meditations. Here is what he wrote. And I want you to hear this not as ancient philosophy, but as a man having a conversation with himself at dawn before the world made its demands. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work, as a human being. What do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for? The things I was brought into the world to do? Or is this what I was created for? To huddle under the blankets and stay warm? Then he answers himself. He writes, So you were born to feel nice? Instead of doing things and experiencing them? Don't you see the plants, the birds, the ants and spiders and bees going about their individual tasks, putting the world in order as best they can? And you are not willing to do your job as a human being? Read that again. The most powerful man in the world, arguing with himself at dawn, reminding himself why getting up matters, using the image of ants and bees and spiders to shame himself into action. He was not different from you. He had the same argument you have every morning, the same pull of the warm blanket, the same resistance. The difference was not that he felt it less. The difference was what he did with it. He wrote it down. That single habit, writing before the world got loud, is documented as the foundation of everything Marcus Aurelius became. Much of Meditations is believed to have been written in the early hours of the day, often while he was stationed in military camps far from Rome. These writings served as personal reminders and exercises rather than works intended for others. Think about that. The ruler of Rome, on a military campaign, in a tent, surrounded by the machinery of war, woke up and wrote. Not battle plans, not orders, not correspondence. He wrote to himself about what he believed, about how he wanted to show up that day, about what he was afraid of and what he was going to do about it anyway. The emperor didn't take days off. No matter how tired he was, he always got out of bed. Not because it was easy, because he had built a morning practice that made the decision before the resistance could win. There is a word the Stoics used for this, premeditatio, pre-thinking, the deliberate act of preparing your mind before the day begins, before the demands arrive, before the noise starts, before other people's priorities replace your own. Marcus used his journal as the instrument of premeditatio. Every morning he asked himself the same kinds of questions. What am I afraid of today? What might go wrong and how will I respond if it does? What do I value and am I living in alignment with it? Who do I want to be when this day is finished? He was not journaling for posterity. He was not building a philosophy. He was doing the internal work that made external leadership possible. Marcus Aurelius transformed from a reluctant ruler into history's most admired philosopher-emperor through daily habits, not grand gestures. His meditations prove that consistent practices create extraordinary character. Daily habits, not grand gestures, not the speech that changed everything, not the single decision that defined a legacy. The quiet, unglamorous pre-dawn work of a man choosing, deliberately and daily, who he was going to be. As biographer Frank McLean observed, Marcus was an insomniac who hated getting out of bed in the morning, a serious fault in the culture of Rome where people considered it a virtue to be up early. As a result, Marcus Aurelius made a concerted effort to drag himself from bed every day. He hated it, and he did it anyway, every day, for nearly 2 decades of rule. That is not inspiration. That is discipline. And there is a difference worth understanding. Inspiration is what you feel when you hear a great story or watch someone do something extraordinary. It moves you in the moment. It is real, but it fades. Discipline is what happens before inspiration arrives. It is the act of showing up when the feeling is not there, when the morning is dark and cold and the blanket is warm and nothing inside you wants to move. Marcus Aurelius was not inspired every morning. He was disciplined every morning, and the journal was the mechanism of that discipline, not a diary of feelings, a daily interrogation of the self, a conversation between who he was and who he intended to be. You do not need an empire to need that conversation. You need it if you lead 3 people or 30, if you are starting something or rebuilding something, if you are questioning your path or just trying to find the energy to take the next step on a road that feels longer than you expected. The morning, that quiet space before the world makes its demands, is the only time of day that belongs entirely to you. Marcus understood this. He protected it fiercely, and he used it not to consume information or prepare for meetings or answer the needs of others. He used it to prepare himself. Every week on Legacy Latitude, we bring you exactly this. Stories from the people who figured something out that most of us are still searching for. Not because they were different from you, because they were not. They were uncertain. They were tired. They struggled with the same mornings you struggle with. And then they wrote it down, or trained through it, or sailed past it, or simply got out of bed one more time and did the work. That is the thread running through every episode of this channel, and the next time you hear it, you will recognize it faster, because you heard it here first. One thought before you go. Marcus Aurelius wrote meditations entirely for himself. He never published it. He never shared it. He never knew that nearly 2,000 years later, billions of people would read the words he wrote in a tent before dawn. He just wrote, every morning, for himself, because the act of writing made him better at the act of living. Here is the question I want to leave you with today. If you wrote one honest sentence every morning, before the phone, before the noise, before anyone else's voice entered the day, what would it say? Not what you think it should say. What it would actually say. Sit with that. I will see you in the next one.